Thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here. As the announcer said, I'm Dallas Lawrence. I'm with Samba TV. I have the great responsibility of, in the next 10 minutes, walking you through some really deep research that we did. I'm going to go incredibly fast because there's a lot of data and a lot of details here. It's going to be like a freight train of data and insights on a new, really a new thing we're seeing kind of emerge, this subscription cycler. First, again, I'm with Samba TV, thrilled to be here. We're a leading measurement provider. We created the technology that sits on televisions made by over 24 manufacturers, sold in over 100 countries, that lets us see and measure everything that's on the glass, from streaming to linear to video game playing. So we have really deep insights into the space. Today, we partnered with the Harris Poll, a leading global polling firm, to survey over 2,000 US adults to understand this new term of subscription cycling. So we're going to go through three things, and I'm going to do it really quick. First, who is the cycler? Who is this mythical creature, and what are they doing? Second, why are they cycling? There's 5 key trends we're going to unpack about what's driving cycling today. And lastly, we wouldn't want to send you away with just out something and then take action. So 3 kind of thought starters to take back and think about how you can leverage the world of cycling. So let's get right into it. Who is the subscription cycler? We first need to kind of level set on a shared definition of this research. The cycler in this research, when we ask folks, have you in the last 6 months signed up for a streaming subscription with the complete 100% intent of canceling in 30 days after watching one program? You knew what you were going to do, and you did it from the very beginning. So that was the mindset. In the last 6 months, 3 in 10 US adults report having done this in the last 6 months. That is a big number. What we're going to talk about today is the new norm. Those who say they're going to be doing it in the next 6 months. And that number is significantly higher. That number is more than 2/3 of US adults report that they plan to become subscription cyclers. Next slide. As we move forward, what we want to take a look at is, who is this cycler? Are they one and done, or is this really becoming a pattern? And what we're seeing is, once you dip your toes in, you tend to want to keep doing it. And it's really attractive to the younger generation. Gen Z, those who do it, more do it 2 or 3 times than do it once. So they are dining and dashing on a regular basis with these streaming subscriptions. Unpacking it a little bit more, as you go a little bit deeper into the data, what you see is, next slide please, is that it's not just the Gen Zs. The sweet spot of the cycler is the millennial, that 25 to 44-year-old who is accustomed to taking charge and taking control and shifting around their behaviors. As we look a little deeper into the data, what you see on the next slide is that, again, that same trend we talked about, it's only going to increase. So if you build the slide, what you see is we're at 43, 42, 24%. We're doing it in the last 6 months. That is going to double and triple for some generations in the next 6 months. These folks are reporting they are going to be doing this on a regular basis and engaging and taking charge of how they run their subscriptions. It is ubiquitous. If you look at the next slide, you begin to dig a little deeper. It's across all ethnicities. And one of my favorite data points on the next slide, if you take a look, we assumed the data would tell us that the subscription cycler was where? Where would you think they would be on this? Probably right in that middle slot, right? That $50,000 to $75,000 range. In fact, what you see when you build the slide is actually it ladders up. The more you make, the more likely you are to cycle. So a little hint, an advanced slide. The number one reason why people cycle is not to save money. That is one of the top 5 reasons, but it's not number 1. So that is who the cycler is, what we see about them, kind of a little bit of insights into how they're cycling, why they're cycling, is what we're going to talk about next. So let's go ahead and build a slide. So there are 5 key things driving subscription cycling today, both from the data in this survey, but also from Samba TV's research that we're able to capture through billions of hours of TV viewing measurement that we see. The first is just the huge tsunami of content available to folks. The second is binge watching. It is really changing how we think about our relationship with streaming platforms. The third is correlated with that binge watching. It's the shrinking of the lifetime value of this content. We'll talk about why that's important. The fourth, a real price ceiling has been reached and how many subscriptions we're willing to have. We'll share that data fresh off from the Harris Poll. And the last is one of my favorites. And this is the growing role of AVOD and how that's changing how we think about the subscriptions we need to have in our lives because we have this AVOD to fall back onto. Let's unpack the first one. This is some really interesting data from Samba TV. What we found, looking at the top 5 streamers on this screen right here, we analyzed the top 50 programs on each of these platforms watched in Q2. And what we found is that 62, 60, and 55% of the 3 on the left, so a majority of those folks, only watched one of the top 50 programs. What that tells us is they've watched theirs and they've left. They've not been pulled deeper into the ecosystem for different content. These three are the most at risk of cycling and churn because folks have not found content that draws them in. On the right, what you see is Disney and Netflix have done a better job of driving you in and pulling you into repeat content. If you're interested to try to win a bar bet as to what the most watched shows are, you can click the slide and see. For those who only watch one of the top 50, those are the top shows for those who come and go after only watching one of the top 50 shows on the programs. What this tells us, going back to the survey, if you build the slide, the number one reason people report cycling, I only found one piece of content that was interesting to me. In this sea of content, with $40 billion being spent this year on content, the majority of folks who cycle said, I only found one thing that I was interested in, so I left. Moving to the next slide, just putting a further kind of highlight on this, there's a direct correlation between those who said, I only found one piece of content, and I'm going to cycle. You'll see that between the Netflix and Apple TV Plus numbers. Next slide. The second really theme that we're seeing is binge watching, how it's changing our culture. It is ubiquitous today. 70% are binge watching. It cuts across all demographics. What that means to us is, when we're seeing about your cycling needs, if you go to the next slide, is that you're coming in and you're watching quickly. So you're not binge watching something 45, 60 days after it's been online, after it's come online. In the first 2 weeks, we see that for those who binge, 40 to 50% of the binge watching has happened. So take that, just to give that an example on the below data points here. If you look at Stranger Things, 41% of viewers of Stranger Things binge the entire season in the first 4 days. So they're coming, eating all of the content, and they're done. There's nothing else for them to see, and they're moving on. Going to the next one, so that's our binge. Third, the lifetime value is shrinking of this content. This really plays in with binge. So what you're seeing is the tentpole value of content is no longer going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 months to drag you into multiple months. It's much quicker. The data tells us that the average, the 3/4 of the shows, the lifetime viewing happens in the first 14 days. So 50 days, if you take a look at the first 50 days of a show, the majority, 3/4 of that viewing happens in the first 15 days. For some of these shows, it happens in the first 5. So that lifetime value is shrinking of how long I feel like I need to be with you is another key driver of this. The next slide, we have reached a price ceiling. The survey came out this last month, and what we found in this survey was for the first time ever, a majority of US adults report they no longer have a traditional linear television subscription. What this survey also tells us is they are not willing to replace the $100 they gave to their cable company with $100 in SVOD subscriptions. The sweet spot is 2. They are willing to have 2. There's a huge drop-off between 2 and 3. So what they're saying is, I'm not going to have 2 for 12 months. I'm not marrying you. I'm dating you, and we're going to be going on and off. And I'm going to have an open relationship in my dating here. So this is the key metric for us to be thinking at. The last one is actually my favorite as we think about the future that's coming. Again, so yeah, price was actually the second reason given for why people cycle. Number one being only found one piece of content. The last reason that we're seeing that's driving cycling is really my favorite, and it's the rise of AVOD, and how we're seeing AVOD really becoming a core component of individuals' streaming behaviors. The last 24 months have all been about the SVODs. In the last couple months, we're really starting to think about the AVODs. It will be the story of the next 12, 18, 24 months, especially with Netflix and Disney Plus coming online. But what this tells us, if you build the slide, everyone's watching AVOD. And what they're doing is they're using it as a foundational element of their own mini bundles that they're creating. They're not afraid to cancel their subscriptions because they know that 40% of content is available on multiple platforms, and they're going to have it on their AVOD to fall back on when they want to have something to watch. So those are the 5 key drivers. Now, I promised in the last 1 minute and 16 seconds that I would leave you with 3 things that you could take back and think about that are a little different and we think a little fun from the data and from our own research. So the first thing to think about, how do you win in the cycling market? This is a no-brainer at first. Shift from acquisition to retention when we think about our advertising strategy. But here's the twist. If you're Netflix and you have an Ozark viewer, and that Ozark viewer is ending their arc with you, you're going to try to market them back to something that you know they watched on Netflix, because you know that. But what if you knew, if you build the slide, that Ozark viewers are 3 times more likely to watch The Gilded Age? Samba can tell you that. Other people in the ecosystem can tell you that, who can see the entire ecosystem of where everybody watches and what they watch. What would this tell you? It would tell you, even if this Ozark viewer only watched one thing on Netflix, I would now know that I should probably market to them Bridgerton, to bring them back in and hold them in. Data you may not have known. So the key here on this retention shift is you have to understand the entire life cycle of what this viewer is watching on all of their platforms to make sure you're giving them that content they really want. The second one, again, obviously also starts with the very similar theme that we talked about, win back. How do we win back? But it's that same model. We have to think a little bit differently now. So the person who watched season 1, of course you're going to market to them when season 2 comes on your platform. But what if they've already cycled? What if they're gone and not there anymore? We need to follow that season 1 viewer wherever they may have gone. If they've gone into linear, if they've gone into mobile, if they've gone onto other AVOD platforms, you need to make sure you market that season 2 to them. And you need to do it early. Again, remembering our window, 2 weeks. That's the lifespan of the attention span of these folks for new content. So you got to market to them early and pull them through. The last one is more just fun, because I love the debate that's happening right now about, do we feed the binger or do we elongate the cycle with these once a week Friday evening drops? And I love that Netflix actually found a way to have their cake and eat it too, and we have some fun data to share on this. So obviously those who know Netflix's season 4 of Stranger Things, they dropped it in 2 volumes over 2 months to elongate that cycle to get 2 months out of the streamer. But they also fed the binger, because they gave you 8.5 hours or 9 hours of content that you could consume, which, as we saw, 41% did in the opening weekend. What they were able to do during this 4 weeks is build momentum and excitement. So 2.9 million households tuned in to the first episode of season 4. If you click the next one, 3.2 million tuned in to volume 2. They actually built audience and built excitement by playing both ends of extend, but also feed the binger. So that is a lot of data. I am exactly 45 seconds overdue. If you want more information, we can send you the deck, but we're thrilled to do this with TheWrap. And really, the key takeaway for all of us, the subscription cycle is here to stay. It is the new norm. Thank you very much.